Set?
Yep.
Okay. Let's call this show to order. I'm Joanna Whitcomb. I'm the Vice Chair of the Hanover Selectboard. I'm sitting in for Athos, who hopefully will be joining us soon, but I'll get us started. Welcome to the Town of Hanover Selectboard meeting here on Monday night, December 11th, 2023. And as our former chair would say, we're here to do good work for the town and have a little fun. So I have officially called the meeting to order. And the first item on our agenda, we have two public hearings scheduled. The first is the second public hearing number 2 of 3 hearings regarding acquisitions and conveyances of real estate in the town of Hanover pursuant to RSA 41-14A. It's a process as we approved at our last town meeting, and so we have 3 public hearings that we go through before we take a vote. There are 11 conveyances or acquisitions, many of which involve Dartmouth College, and so I'm going to recuse myself and go to the audience and let the secretary take over.
Okay, all right.
Is that okay?
Thank you, John. Yes, it's okay. Yes, all right. This will not be the meeting in which we act upon these recommendations, but it is one of the opportunities for members of the public to comment on any of these. And so just quickly, I will go through what these conveyances are, not in great detail, but the first is the Campion Rink drainage easement, which is being acquired from Dartmouth College. The second is the Hanover Inn Porte Cochere, which is the little thing you drive in, right? Is it Porte Cochere? Okay. That's being conveyed to Dartmouth College. The Old Tuck Drive sidewalk easement is being conveyed to Dartmouth College. The West Wheelock Sewer Pump Station is being acquired from Dartmouth College. The North College Street sidewalk is being acquired from Dartmouth. The North College Street retaining wall is being conveyed to Dartmouth. The Pine Park pedestrian public access represents a release of easement from the town of Hanover. And the removal of enforcement rights, restrictive covenants for 33 Goodfellow Road is transferred to the property owner. And then there are transfers of easements to Lebanon relating to trail systems and associated land. The first is the Indian Ridge easement, approximately 130 acres being conveyed to the city of Lebanon. The pond easement, approximately 19 acres being conveyed to the city of Lebanon. And 6 trails easements outside the Indian Ridge tract being conveyed to the city of Lebanon. Action will be taken next week. Again, this is the second of 3 public hearings, but an opportunity for comments, questions from the public. Are there any related to this portion of our public hearing? Yes, and if you could please, if you don't mind coming to the table, and there is, it's really a microphone for the, yeah, that's actually meant to be for the CATV. And if you could please state your name and
I'm
address.
Doug McElroy from Hayfield Road, and I was along, and all I had to say was a matter of amusement. The transfer of the Lebanon easement, as discussion began in the Trails Committee of the Conservation Commission in November 2006. I looked that up today, but I thought you'd be amused at how slow the wheels turn. But I was interested that this is actually probably going to come to pass.
You've been waiting.
Well, so don't leave, Doug, because thank you for the amusement value. As Joanna said, we're here to have fun, so thank you. But I have a question for you, believe it or not, since you know the history probably better than those of us sitting up here for sure. So to the extent that there are trail interconnects between these trails and the Hanover trails, Do we feel that through this conveyance that there will be this continuity of trails, that we won't lose something on the Hanover side? Any comments on that?
As long as Lebanon maintains the path that comes to the Guile Hill parking lot.
Okay.
We have our connectivity. All the other connectivity is in effect in Lebanon.
I see. Okay. Interesting. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the select board members for Doug? I know he came to comment to us.
And nobody can accuse us of acting in haste. Is that your comment, Doug?
Pardon?
Nobody can accuse us in Hanover of acting in
Haste.
haste.
Yeah.
No.
I think we have good proof of that.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Doug.
Appreciate your work on the Trails Alliance.
Yes, thank you. Any other,
Did we have any more information? There were a lot of questions asked last time about, like, once those trails are conveyed, how do we know whether Lebanon will maintain them as trails? Is there something that we need to, put in the conveyance that could help them stay as trails? That Indian Ridge Connection is a used trail. That was one of the questions on that one.
Yeah, a couple of questions that I had from the last meeting. One was about the Port Cochere. Athos pronounced it much better last meeting. And there were some questions about ensuring that the sidewalks are going to be done properly and if there was any liability on the town, which we didn't think that there was. The other question I had was about this, and the staff's perspective was that trying to require that Lebanon does a particular thing with the property or not is a little bit beyond our purview. And if we're transferring that, we could certainly send a letter, maybe stating something. I would probably encourage, it may not be worth going too much further than that, but that was sort of our discussion on the staff side. So sending sort of a request.
could we, to Doug's point, just given Guile Hill has a large concentration, could we make sure that that connectivity is maintained? I don't know exactly where the property line is, but keeping that trailhead from the parking lot into the trail system would be, I think, a very nice amenity for all the residents of Guile Hill. So is that something we could just follow up with?
Yeah, I would just encourage it's a sort of request that we would make rather than us trying to create a legal requirement in the transaction with Lebanon. I mean, if you all wanted to go in that direction, I could look into it, but all the staff perspective was that that's probably not something that we want to do.
No, not a legal understanding, but rather
just identifying this.
Since this is the time in which we're conveying that we just, we want to, it's our intent and our hope, right?
I think we can certainly do that, and we can speak to the right people as well, so we can make sure that I don't think there will be, whatever formal stuff goes, we'll include a letter that makes that request, and also follow up with the individuals.
Okay, great, thank you.
Super.
Anything else on these proposals?
Just about the Port Cochere, if it comes to our attention that maybe, pedestrian access could be improved across the driveway, like what is the process different if we've conveyed it to Dartmouth? That's the question that I have.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be owned by the public anymore, so we would make a request to them to make those improvements or meet with them to do so.
Yeah.
Okay, we got that, all right. Anything else on these proposals? Okay, then if there is nothing else, then let's move on to the second part of the public hearing, and I'll invite Johanna to come back. Topic being natural burials.
Do you close that public hearing?
Yeah.
All right, we are closing this. We're closing this public hearing and moving on to a second public hearing. Right? Yeah. Okay.
So thank you for inviting me back.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes.
It's very kind of you. So I would like to open a second public hearing to review and discuss amending ordinance number 25. which is the Municipal Cemeteries Ordinance, rules and regulations to include natural burials. So we can take comments on this. We have a number of questions that we're looking into, some research that's being done to determine if, in fact, we have the authority to make these modifications. So we have to dig into town records to see if town meeting has authorized the select board to make these decisions through a public hearing process, or whether we have to go to town meeting. But if people would like to, you came in, if you'd like to come up and speak to this, we'd love to have you do that. Are there people who want to speak? Come on up. Please come to the table, give us your name, and have a seat.
Sure. Hi, I'm Melanie Podolik, Hanover resident for 35 or 36 years, lost track. Anyway, happy to talk about this. As I understand it, Sustainable Hanover Group started looking into this matter several years ago, and then COVID intervened, as it has with lots of different things. And it just so happened I went to a Lee Webster workshop on natural burials and basically the funeral industry in general, and came away thinking, wow, maybe that's something we should think about. I haven't made any decision of how to dispose of my body particularly, but I do like the idea that the town of Hanover offers an alternative to environmentally harmful burials, which is currently one of the choices, or cremation, which in fact is not very environmentally positive either. So that's kind of why I'm here. I understand that there could be complications with looking at it from the select board point of view, or perhaps going to town meeting with it, and certainly understood that's bureaucracy and that's how things work. But I would just like to answer questions if there are any, and sort of let you know that this is something that I've heard from a lot of people. There's a lot of interest, and could be an option that we give the community.
Thank you. Do you have a question, Nancy?
No,
Sure.
but Melanie gave a lengthy, a longer conversation with lots of detail to those of us on the sustainability. I'm now your representative to the sustainability committee, and they were all extremely positive, and John Sherman was there, and it is his parks and recreations that takes care of our cemeteries, and he described in some detail the difference between taking care of a cemetery where only caskets and traditional burials take place, because then you run a very large lawnmower over everything. The natural burials have lend themselves to create a much more almost meadow-like environment, and so the care is slightly different, actually less polluting in terms of gasoline engines running over it and so forth. But he said that his grounds and cemetery team were very willing to take this on, did not consider it a burden.
Great.
I think one of the questions that came up the last time when we voted on the public hearing was why the cemetery that was picked, why that cemetery? We understood it had to be like separate from traditional burials, but were other cemeteries considered? Were other places viable? Not that anybody had any reason to not want that one, just like what was that process and why that cemetery?
You're talking about Pine Knoll.
Yes.
So first of all, looking at the Dartmouth Cemetery, I assure you that 85 to 90% of the burials in the Dartmouth Cemetery are natural burials. So that's been taken care of, although that cemetery is no longer available to Hanover residents. As well, Lebanon has 2 cemeteries. One is the cemetery where Jewish people will be buried, want to be buried, and the other one is a part of Old Pine Tree Cemetery, I believe. And Windsor's working on their own natural burial spot in their cemetery. Lyme, I'm told already has natural burial available. So we're playing catch up here.
So Melanie, I think that there are, 7 or 8 cemeteries in the town of Hanover. And I think, to be more clear, if I may, the only Pine Knoll is being proposed in this ordinance amendment. We're wondering why other Hanover cemeteries weren't considered. I mean, I think the general consensus was, oh, this is a good idea. We should, pursue this. Let's get feedback from the community. But overall, it's a recommendation from one of our committees. We're supportive. And then just the question that came up was, well, why only one? Why not, do it everywhere? And so I think that's the question.
That's a really good question, and I simply don't have an answer.
Okay, well, we can ask John. I think the plan is that we're postponing this till we can get clarification on what's the correct process to modify the ordinance. So we'll just add that to our list for John to consider. Does this make sense, Alex?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
thank
very
you.
much for your work on this.
Thank you. And I've actually left some pamphlets here if
Oh,
anyone's
good.
interested.
Other comments? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Mason. I'm technically over from Lebanon, and we did unanimously approve natural burial in the cemetery over there last year. But I just came to speak on this because I'm kind of passionate about natural burial and really just the misconception of natural burial versus traditional burial. Sorry, public speaking for a while, but
It's okay. Take your time.
the traditional burial is really young, especially in a place like New England. I mean, she mentioned that really 85 to 90% of the burials in the Dartmouth, Hanover were natural, and that's because it really was the way things were up until about the Civil War in the U.S. The first Union soldier that was killed was one of the first embalmed corpses. He was put up in a window, displayed, and in an era where, because of the Civil War, you were being sent away from your family to die, it was important to then embalm those corpses and ship them back. And it really caught on as a trend after that. And there are cases where embalming is important, and it also caught on as a trend due to health concerns at the time, but I feel like we've sort of moved past the need for it in most cases. I mean, there are certainly cases for embalming, but I just kind of dislike the look of it as natural. That's this new upcoming trend versus the traditional burial of embalming, when really it's less than 200 years old and is a trend in itself.
Great. Thank you for that information. Any questions for Mason?
I think we just didn't get your last name.
Davis, sorry, I didn't get it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for the history lesson also.
Yeah, really interesting. Other comments or questions from the board? No other comments? What about our select board? Any other questions we want explored? So without any other questions, why don't I close the public hearing and we will move on to the next agenda item. Thank you for coming on that one. So the next agenda item is to review the agenda. So the next, we have allocated some time for public comment. We have some business requiring discussion concerning budget and finance update, religious use exemption letter discussion. We're going to review the upcoming election dates for 2024, as well as the select board's responsibilities. And then in terms of business requiring action, we're going to review and approve the 2024 select board schedule, approve minutes from November 27th and October 18th, and then approve items through the consent agenda, and then reports and communications from town manager and the select board. So, at this point, I open the session for public comment. Are there any comments from the public? Doug, please have a seat so our viewing audience.
Doug McElroy again. One incidental comment is that I recall, it's been a while since I came to a select board meeting, but I missed the free agendas that used to be handed out.
Well, we could probably see about
Probably
having a
scare
couple
one up
here.
if
We
you-
could probably do that.
And
I can't give you mine though. It's too much pressure tonight.
I can give you mine, but it's very expensive.
and now the one that I came for, which is a kind of nickels and dimes thing, but at the end of the month, those of us who own landfill punch cards will be stuck with whatever supply of unused punches we have. Whereas Lebanon residents can keep on using theirs.
Really?
And somehow I think we ought to be able to get a refund.
Alex, what do you have to say about this?
I have heard about that issue. I am not sure we'll be able to do that, but I can certainly look into it. I think it could be depending on how the ordinance was set up in Lebanon, so that might be difficult to do, but there might be a little clever, so how long do we have until?
December
the end of the
31st.
I have to get a lot of trash to.
Yeah, we don't want to encourage that, although maybe we could do a big winter clean out. There's an idea that we were talking about internally with some of our staff. Let me come back,
We're
actually
meeting
by
again
next
next
week. Yeah.
So, but my
might have
neighborhood, on our listserv in my neighborhood, our neighbors offered them up, and like they're sharing punch cards right now. So
Right.
just, I won't tell you where I
Or you
live, but
could, you could go down to the transfer station in Lebanon and scalp them as people come in. I don't know if that's
that'll be
allowed.
$5.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you.
But Doug, that's a great idea. I too will not mention that neighborhood, but I do know that some people who are very active in the sustainability effort have been publicly saying, I have a punch card, do you need some punches and so forth. So if you live in a community where, I'm going to try it down on Brook Road where I live and see whether or not, because there are about 35 houses down there and we may be in the same situation. I was not aware that Lebanon got a pass on that.
That's what, yeah. Well, Alex will look into it for us, thank you.
I will.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Other public comment? David, come on up.
Hello, my name is David Vincelette. I come here, I have a duty as an ex-Army officer to defend the Constitution. I'm using this forum to spread light on federal crimes committed by members of this board and other town officers. 3 members of this board, although one isn't here tonight, Athos Racius, Joanna Whitcomb, Nancy Bean, all voted to put a fence around my family's property. Now, it started with Hanover dumping poison in our water. We got on the town's bad side. And since that time, the town has brought all the levers of power to bear on my family. So for the last 18 months, I've tried to contact the new town manager, hoping to get on the agenda so that the people who committed the crimes could be questioned and the town could have light thrown on this subject. Instead, Alex has silenced me too. refused to call, even after Athos Racius told him 2 months ago to call me at a board meeting. He still hasn't contacted me. Now, the state constitution says that town officers are answerable to the citizens, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening here. And Alex certainly has not made himself available. He's available for podcasts, but not available to the people who are having trouble. Now, I have 5 minutes to talk each week, or each select board meeting, so I try to get in what I can. But these issues deserve more time than I'm being given. Now, the government, Dartmouth College, Hypertherm, the old hospital, and others donated asphalt waste to be ground up and spread on the roads, and it went into our water supply. I had purchased land hoping to build on land that was grandfathered with in-stream rights to water before any dumping ever took place. And the town had a mission statement for, I'm not sure the name of it, but they came up with a series of rules, and one of the first rule on their, it was their master plan. The first rule was that they would protect the town waters. And instead, we paid the town officials and unions to pollute our own water. When we were held down on my property, the town built a concentration camp by putting a fence up all around us. There were people who were being polluted now had to drink water from the brook because the fence around our house kept a repairman from coming to fix our pump when it went out. So we had no water. We had no electricity after it was turned off because I couldn't pay my electric bills. They closed down my rental property, so I had no income. In the group of people that were held in the concentration camp, there were disabled people, 3 African Americans, 2 veterans, my wife, a Ukrainian Jew, who's now an American citizen. And I came to this board, and despite my reports of crimes, they refused to free us till a court made them. And to this date, there has still been no apology for holding American citizens in violation of their constitutional rights for 25 and a half months. I came to the town, I told them that the people who were being held were from classes of people who were normally abused and not treated properly. And I found out the hard way that disabled people, veterans, Jewish people, and African Americans can be abused with impunity in this town. No one from the community has yet stepped up to stand with me against what has been done to my family. It's sad.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to business requiring discussion. Alex, you want to give us an update on budget and finance?
Sure. So I don't have a huge update tonight. All of our operating and capital requests are out to department heads right now. We are meeting with department heads on pretty much a weekly basis because of the retention, recruitment, staffing study. So that obviously connects a little bit to some of the budget pieces. Ellen and I are starting to schedule some meetings over the next couple weeks. Of course, it gets a little iffy in 2 weeks for the rest of the year, really, with departments going through some of their submissions. I think we're basically pretty close to being on track to the timeline that we laid out a couple meetings ago, maybe a week behind, which feels pretty good. Capital requests next will also, in the next couple of weeks, we'll start moving back to the CIPC for more discussion there too.
Speaking of which, I read in your report that there's a new CIPC formed. Is that something that you could share with the board, or maybe just so we could see what it looks like?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just.
I mean, maybe it's on the website.
No, it's just available to staff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would just be interesting to see what you're asking for and kind of what we can expect in terms of information that we'll have in the budgeting process.
Yeah, I think, was it Jenny or Carrie, one of you circulated a nicer formatted than I had of all the questions?
It's just a shorthand.
Okay.
I could add a little bit more to it, and then it'd be more complete. So when Alex distributed it, it was a printout of. It ends up looking weird because it's a form that you fill out and then get other questions. So it ends up being a lot of pages with not that many questions on it. So I have a one-pager of the questions, and then I think probably just one of them, the definitions of the categories.
It would just be interesting.
Yeah.
So that'd be
It sounds
great.
like that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Most
So,
of us.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Alex.
No, that's it.
Carrie.
So I know at the last meeting, I think Kari asked, so about the undesignated fund balance dropping by 500,000.
Yeah.
And it wasn't entirely clear because it was, didn't seem like it was a revenue miss, didn't seem like it was an expense miss, and yet the fund balance is down by 500,000. So, and I know several other people that I know, independent of the finance committee, have asked the same question. I have the same question.
Yep.
So if we could get that would be.
Yeah, I did talk to Ellen about it, and she said she was going to bring it up at the next finance committee meeting, although there might not be one this month.
There was one last week, wasn't there? No.
No, there was one. Yeah, there was one, but I mean, I think the select board would
Yeah, I can-
also be interested in
Yeah.
that.
Just
Yeah,
missing $500,000?
yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be
it's,
good.
it's
Maybe
not.
maybe
yeah.
by the 18th, that
Right.
would be something good we could have.
Sure.
Just, I know it's not missing, but
Right.
it's
Definitely
like,
not.
it's definitely in the
It's
minutes.
just coming from two different sources of the, I'm pretty sure it's just two different sources of audited and non-audited and where the numbers are coming from.
So it'd be great if we could
Yeah.
have that for the 18th. is-
I think that should be doable, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Any other questions? Okay, item number 2. This is very topical, the religious use exemption, which is a letter that has been drafted for the select board to consider sending to our state representatives as a result of a recent planning board decision and 2002 piece of legislation that granted pretty much complete exemptions to any religious entities in the town regulating land use. And so, I don't know, Alex, do you want to just speak to it a bit?
Yeah,
Do you feel
briefly,
comfortable?
yeah, I think you summarized it well. We have in the packet the letter that the planning board, there were some revisions that were made after the planning board meeting last week, so this includes those revisions. And then the packet also includes a memo that describes the state law, so if there's anybody that's curious about it and learning a little bit more about what is exempted, like Joanna said, it's many things. The intent of the state law was to equalize treatment between non-religious uses and religious uses, stemming after a case in a town where there seemed to be it wasn't applied fairly to a religious use. I think the general consensus is that it swung pretty far the other direction, and that it really exempts any religious organizations from any of the things that non-religious organizations do have to do. So this letter just requests the state legislature sort of take a look back at this and make another attempt at writing a law that accomplishes the original goals, which is to treat religious institutions and non-religious institutions the same.
Great. It's actually a good letter. I read it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how, if you've had a chance to, did you wanna
Sort of a
speak to it?
genesis of it, so I can like give my planning board report now, but the
Great.
genesis of it was that our planning board was, had a difficult time with this case. And I mentioned before I voted that I literally, for me, the case stems from 2018 and walking the snowy outlines of this property with Judith Esme, who is a very dear friend. We had two very spirited public conversations about this topic, and the room was filled to overflowing. And and there was a lot of comment on it. Many people directing their ire at the planning board, and it turned out that the planning board, you know, our hands basically were tied. And at the end of our vote in favor of the church beginning the process to build on the property that they own on Greensboro, we then, after the case was decided, actually turned to Rob Hausman, who's a very good writer, and said, you know, Rob, would you find a way of capturing the dismay felt around this table by the members of the planning board? And so that draft is mostly Rob's work, with other people adding comments and so forth. And the planning board hasn't voted on a final draft of it. But we also agreed that we are in a kind of unique position because we are the first town which in its entirety has had a case. I mean, other towns have had an addition to an existing church building or something of that type, which has been affected by this, but ours is the first where literally a piece of empty land, and all of the issues that we normally have jurisdiction over, we, the planning board, had very few, limited to heights and so forth, relatively minor issues in what is usually a very major kind of review for the planning board. And so Rob drafted this. We're going to read it as a board, and then we're going to send it to Concord and say, we welcome your coming to talk to us, you know, write back to us, use this as a test case. We'd be very happy to have a larger profile in the state if that's what you want to do in the midst of redrafting this legislation. But we are very full of hope that they will redraft this legislation because it has unintended consequences.
Right. Jenny, did you have a comment? No?
Oh,
You were at the meeting too, right?
It just made me wonder what constitutes
A religious
a
use?
religious use, if we're gonna have, 3,000 religious uses now in Hanover because you have
Yoga.
zero oversight, right? I
Right.
mean, we can use markets.
Yeah.
And they can build
So
a
I
wall,
actually,
build
I open up the, if there's a recommendation from members here, I think it makes sense for the planning board to, send a letter. I actually think the select board should too, because I think this has significant
Make it more powerful.
ramifications
Absolutely.
in our town, having to do with the environment and, impacts on neighbors and stormwater and all these things and lighting that we are very concerned about, and we were unable, my understanding is the planning board was unable to review it.
Yeah,
So
not parking, sidewalks,
nothing.
connections, and how much.
Or
lighting
limiting
is
the number of parking spaces.
Yeah, there's no.
Yep.
Ability to
So
oversee that.
I would entertain a motion to move this forward if people are so inclined.
To move, to basically sign on to the planning board, or to move on this letter? I guess first.
Do we need
Move
to,
this
do we need to
forward.
vote on this?
Well,
Sending a
it's-
letter?
Yeah,
Or
it's
just-
on the agenda
Yeah.
to vote.
We can just sign it, or we need to actually,
I think the record should show that we support sending this letter to our New Hampshire senators and representatives.
we need to read the letter into the,
We should read the letter into the record. or add it
You
to
would just have
minutes?
to,
Put it in
but,
there.
I mean, you could put it in the minutes,
put it
it's in the packet.
Okay.
I mean, I think that the intent of the House Bill 1021 was to prohibit regulation of land use based on the religious nature of an
Yes.
assembly or of speech taking place on the land and in the structure.
Yeah.
Just making sure that land use regulations are applied fairly. And they went to the far extreme and said, yeah, no land use regulations have to be applied to religious uses. And so I think that's not a good idea, so.
I think it's more powerful that we sign on independently.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that the planning board has decided on final verbiage. But I like the idea that both bodies would send the letter to Concord.
Well, I only feel comfortable sending this,
Yes, no, I agree.
because I've read this and I
Yeah.
feel
What
okay
I'm
with
saying is
this.
that your planning board may send one that has
A slight
a
variation.
slight variation, won't be much.
So I move that we approve the letter as presented in our packet dated December 11th to our New Hampshire senators and representatives concerning this new law.
Second your motion.
Any other discussion? Comments from the crowd? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Unanimous in support of sending a letter. Thank you. I'm going to
Sorry, I'm
pass
late.
the
No, please,
baton.
no, please continue. Be much quicker,
Okay.
much more efficient.
So the next item on the agenda is to review the election dates and select board responsibilities. There was a piece in our packet noting that we have 4 elections coming up in 2024. Tuesday, January 23rd is the New Hampshire presidential primary. Tuesday, May 14th is the Hanover town meeting, town election. September 10th is the New Hampshire state primary. And then Tuesday, November 5th is the presidential election and state election. And I think in terms of election responsibilities, Alex, do you want to walk us through this? Do you want?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we went over this a little bit last year, just sort of checking in, and we sort of broke this out into 3 different kind of sections. At the opening and closing of the election is one thing, and then throughout the day, and then when the ballots are sealed. And so the statute does require the full select board be there the entire time, which is obviously a little challenging. It is spelled wrong in this memo, but there is a mechanism, the pro tems, that can be delegated to do that by select board members. They cannot be, so basically, ideally you have the full governing body at the opening and at the closing. Throughout the day, I think the past practice has been to sort of rotate shifts of people.
Yes.
Though that's not exactly what the law says, though it has been, we've been given a thumbs up in the past from what I understand. And then when the ballots are sealed, really everybody,
Right.
all of the 5 of you really need to be there to sign that. That one was definitely pointed out as important. But especially considering how sensitive everything is next year with elections, we thought it would be a good idea to sort of throw this back out there. And so we can try to help a little bit, but basically if finding pro tems that can help fill in some of those gaps is a very useful tool. But it's obviously a big demand, especially with, I don't think, the school board election doesn't count for this, but the other 4 do. But still, 4 is a lot of elections.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's a lot of days off work.
And it's a lot of hours because we have very
12 hours.
we,
Right.
we have very hardworking
Oh.
board members, all of whom have other jobs for pay, and this is neither a job nor for pay. No, I'm
Right.
kidding. It's a huge job.
Well, it's actually more than 12 hours because
Yes.
election and presidential election sometimes they
Go
don't
on
end until
until
like 11
1
Right.
o'clock or
12. So, I mean, if our, I guess my sense, maybe I should, yes. My sense is that's a lot to have all 5 of us there all day.
Yes.
And I think if our legal advice for our election and moderator feel that we have to have 5 people there throughout the day that we should consider the pro tem. But for the decade that I've been on the board, we've always closed with everyone and divided the 12-hour shift by 5, two, and the 3 or so in there. But so your feeling, Alex, is, and with Jarrett, with the town moderator and the advisor, the supervisor checklists, we have a thumbs up for how we've been doing it, but what you're saying is that all the other towns in the state have all 3 or 5 select board members at the elections, or do you know?
Well, I'm definitely not saying that, and I also wouldn't necessarily use other, I would take with a grain of salt what happens correctly or not. I guess what I would say is the general sentiment of the election staff and officials are, the law says one thing, understanding we've been doing a practice that, it's not like it doesn't make sense. And this is obviously a huge demand of time to do this. But I guess the encouragement would be really to try and get as close as possible. And especially on the presidential election, maybe town meeting day, I don't know, the stakes are maybe not quite as high, but I would certainly not want to see Hanover get pulled into some issue because somebody challenges an election result for something that, probably, I don't know if I don't know how closely that's followed throughout the state. So the suggestion would be to try and think of election volunteers ahead of time that can take shifts or do things like that and try to fill those gaps in as best as possible, with the importance of everybody being there to seal the ballots, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, I agree with what you just said. I think the most sensitive one, of course, is going to be November 5th. And we really need to, we could be challenged at that election if we're going to be challenged in any election. And we need to have our ducks in a row there. We've never had issues with town meeting or New Hampshire state primary.
Well, we've never had any issues.
No.
We've
Even
never had any issues,
presidentials.
period.
No.
However, I'm always scared of the presidential elections, especially in this year and last year. 4 years ago.
Is this guidance different than previous years? Because it seems like the moderator could always appoint a pro tem. Am I not understanding the RSA? If we don't appoint a pro tem, the moderator is
Well,
authorized.
it would be 4 pro temps. If
Right,
only
the
one
select board
person
should
said-
do it. It's the moderator's ability to, they have an ability to do it,
Right.
but that's not really something that would be fair to put on the moderator. Either that would be something the select board should identify the people ahead of time, because they also can't be existing ballot clerks. So they can't sort of do double
So we have
duty.
to find friends who are registered voters who are willing to,
Stand up, take the pledge,
and so basically we need, if we do it the way we've been doing it, we need 20 additional pro temps, right?
right.
Unless someone would double bill, right? So if we need 5 people for the 12-hour shift,
Yeah.
and we continue our practice of 2 to 2.5 hour shifts or whatever
Yeah.
the math it works out, each of us doing 1 2.5 hour shift,
Right.
we have to find
The other
4 other people.
Joanne, I think we should do that for November 5th. I don't know if we really need to change our practice for the January, May, and September elections.
Carrie, what do you think?
So, I guess I'd like to better understand the staffing requirements and duties, but, because if we swear in another 20 people, it's not exactly clear, but that's probably.
I can tell you what they are,
Yep,
because we have all been very successful. Mostly the select board members sort of take turns around the room. Oftentimes we're standing at the ballot box just smiling, encouraging people to turn their ballot. We keep saying it reads either way. This is how we make a machine not be jammed and so forth. We are the face of their elected officials. One by one we are, and it's a way of making our voters feel welcome. I have other years welcomed people at the door, told college students they're very welcome to come and register that day. So we're around the room very actively during our 2.5-hour stints. We also smile at the very stern-faced men who come from Concord to watch us. And we don't make any, nobody hides about the fact that, oh, we're going to go look for the other 4 members of the select board or anything like that. This is the way we've always done it. And I would very strongly recommend that we not change our MO. I would yield to Athos's concern about the presidential if we're all going to be, on tenterhooks about that. I'm not, but if others are, I respect their concerns. But I think that all of the other, you'll enjoy the day. It's a great way to get to know the voters.
But I think to specifically answer your question, our clerk and our election officials, we have
wonderful.
a lot of people who volunteer
It's amazing.
to register voters, to give ballots out, and it's pretty smoothly run. And I think we have something like, we had 80 volunteers
Over
last
80,
year,
yeah.
over 80.
Yeah.
And so our job as the select board is basically, we're official in the gym or wherever, and we help
run
when
it.
needed, and we usually, we look for the person in the orange vest when there are questions, because there are a couple people who are election experts, and when there's a question or someone spoils a ballot, there's a very official process that they have to go through. So we're just greeters, and we help people put their ballot, help people put their ballots into the machine or direct them. We don't touch them. But I agree with you, Athos. I think we can take this up in November or October and see how the election goes, and we can continue to get more feedback. So, Alex, do you want an official anything from us, or you?
No, this is just an FYI for me and the election officials, just reminding folks what the statutory responsibilities are and the sort of recommendation of not attempting to all 5 be there for all 4, but of taking advantage of the pro tem to try to fill that in as best as possible. Because it's not.
Did I get the math right though? If we were to, that's like 20 people. If there were different people.
If they were different people, yeah.
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 Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
May I add one thing to the, we have discussed this before, and we're not, the decision that you just outlined, Jim, is in line with what we talked about before.
Right.
Just so we're not changing changing anything, meaning we're not changing our pattern tonight, we're continuing the pattern that we've already discussed with this.
Okay. And we'll close out that and move on to business requiring action. The first item on that agenda is reviewing the proposed 2024 select board schedule in your packet. And basically on the first page, starting on January 8th, 7 o'clock meetings. I think the most notable shift is during our budget meetings at the last week of February. We're looking to start meetings at 6, 4 days in a row, February 26, 27, 28, and 29, if needed on the 29th, I think, tentative budget hearings. Any comments?
No, I'd just like to move the schedule as presented in our packet.
Second.
Any comments on that motion? I probably won't be here on March 4th,
Just 1 second, March 4th.
which is the Monday after 4 out of 5 weekdays of meetings.
Oh, you know what? I know I will. Thank you for mentioning. I know that I will not be here on March 4th either.
Really?
Well, sounds like we're striking March 4th.
I may not, it's like a 50-50 that I won't be here.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
March 4th might not be a good meeting day, but
You want to change it now or on the fly?
since we all know I'm not gonna be in country.
Well, there is that risk that there's no snow,
That's-
March
yeah.
4th. And I mean, I guess my feeling is we will have seen a lot of each other the preceding week.
That's a good point. Maybe too
Not
much.
that I
Okay.
don't appreciate my colleagues, but
Yeah.
26, 27, 28, 29, then we have 3 days, and then we would meet on March 4th. So I guess, actually, a question for Alex is, if we're having intense budget meetings or having budget hearings 4 days in a row, that's a lot of opportunity if there's anything pressing that the select board can take up other than budget, because those are all publicly
Yeah.
noticed. Will you have new information on March 4th or new?
So it's possible, I mean, what I would basically do is recommend moving that from the 4th to the 11th,
Yep.
rather than eliminating it, just so that we have that meeting there, because shortly thereafter, we'll need to actually approve the budget on the select board side, so I wouldn't wanna only have one meeting between the
Right.
budget meetings and that.
When does the warrant, do you know when we have to have the warrant finalized? Is it 30 days
It's-
before the
yeah,
meeting?
it's a little earlier than that, or a little further out than that. I don't have the dates in front of me, but I think it was by the end of March. We were done last year.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say move the 4th to the 11th.
I would still be out
Friendly?
of country.
Oh.
I can
I'm
make
good.
the 18th.
Okay.
Okay. Well, why don't we
I
go
can
to
see
the
you,
11th, and is that a friendly amendment?
It is.
Yes.
Any other comments on the proposed schedule? You know, we can change it as we go, but this gives, you can put this in your calendar for now.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Anything else?
I won't be here on April 15th. Hopefully Bruce Springsteen will be playing, even though he's already canceled on me twice.
You canceled on me?
Said Athos, I'm not coming.
But I'm sure that's tax day, maybe, I'm sure.
You'd probably be there.
Do you want me to send Bruce's people the select board schedule? And just...
Do you have an in?
Wait, you're
That's
from New
awesome.
Jersey.
New Jersey, everybody feels like I should. I can pretend like I do.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, since we know 3 out of 5 of us aren't gonna be here on the 4th, let's just keep this as is. And so we're gonna change
And
the
I'm
March 4th to the 11th.
What, Jen?
Yes.
I'm unsure about the 18th, March 18th, that's all. But
Okay.
I can't say either way right now.
I think we'll have 3 people.
Okay, all those in favor of the slightly modified 2024 Select Board meeting schedule?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous decision. Next item is approve November 27th minutes and October 18th retreat notes minutes. Did have one minor change to the, I guess we should have a motion for November 27th.
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes of November 27th. That opens the.
Actually, I don't think you can, because you weren't there.
Oh, that's right. I apologize. Please,
I'll move,
please accept my
what's the
apology.
date?
November
November
27th minutes.
I think in the CIPC, our draft categories also had 100,000, but I didn't get that in there.
What?
Wait a minute.
Or is it the November?
So November 27th, I'm just entertaining a motion to move. I
Oh,
need a
okay.
second and then we can modify.
I move to
Got it.
accept the minutes of November 27th as presented.
Second.
Second. Now, any changes or modifications? So Jenny,
Yes.
on page,
Sorry, I was just getting to them again.
or maybe just tell me approximately under the
Page
CIP?
5 of 6.
Yep,
Our draft of defined capital improvements to be evaluated by the CIPC committee also had a threshold of 100,000. So
Okay,
it
I
has,
see.
the other two are still right, the 8 years and 6-year planning
8 years,
period.
6-year planning period, and $100,000 minimum, right?
Yeah, I just,
okay.
the 100,000 didn't get it in there, so.
that's great.
And I
Okay.
didn't notice that before. Yeah, that was it.
Any other modifications or changes? with that modification, I move that I don't move.
Oh, we
Can
have
I
a
hold
motion.
I'll entertain a vote.
Yes, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nancy abstains as she is not present.
Sorry. I
So
love to
minutes are approved. And then October 18th, Select Board Goal Setting Retreat. Minutes have been submitted by Carrie,
Well,
or,
Carrie with a K.
Yeah, Carrie
Yes, in my
Osgood.
name.
Carrie Osgood.
yes,
Yes,
Carrie,
yes.
gosh, there's a
Yes.
lot of Carries.
Yeah, a
Carries
lot
with
of
a K.
Yeah.
One modification is Barbara McElroy did attend the last hour or so I would put her name
forgot
as
that.
a present, as a non-select board member.
Yep, and how do you spell her last name?
M little c, capital I, L-R-O-Y.
I-L,
R-O-Y.
got it. Okay, yep. Attended the last hour. Okay. And I will take the occasion
And-
of an amendment to change my first name to an O from an A, from an O
Yes.
to an A.
Corey.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Corey, yes.
Please do that.
Yep, okay.
Any other modifications to that? All in favor? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we
I just have
motion.
a
Go
question.
ahead.
Do we want to use the word, that the group played several icebreakers? Do you want, rather than the word play, do you want to entertain?
What's another?
engage? Okay, I just.
What's a verb?
It makes us sound frivolous, and I don't.
Well-
We are.
There's nothing wrong with play,
Okay,
but I see what you mean.
okay.
We
Implement
need
it.
more play.
Nancy, do you-
We
do you
need
not
the
like it?
second
Change
swing. in the
Do you have a
sustainability.
You're
verb?
right, you're right.
Participated
No,
in?
yeah, you could participate in, but never mind. I withdraw my comment. In real life, I'm much more playful than I am in the select board life.
I enjoyed the games. They were
Yes,
fun.
Very good
yes,
games.
they were.
I still think of my colleague here jumping in a kayak off of the railroad
Oh,
bridge.
yeah, that was fun.
Took you by surprise.
Okay, so we have a consent.
Oh, we didn't vote.
Oh, we didn't vote. All of those in favor of the slightly modified October 18th minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous approval. So for the consent agenda, we have 3 items on it. However, the first item, which is a recommendation to adopt the Advisory Board of Assessors recommendation, we really want to table that to December 18th, so I suggest we withdraw that from the consent agenda. And so if we do that, do we need a motion that we table
I
that?
think you can
We
just
have to
pull it out.
motion to take it out of the consent agenda.
So
I make a motion to remove the Board of Assessors exemption discussion off the consent agenda.
Okay,
Item 1 of 3. Yeah.
item 103. And
Item 103.
so, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 2 through 3?
So moved.
So second?
A second from Nancy. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And I would like to take a moment now, if I can find my notes, to thank the very generous people who gave donations. We have a donation from, no, I'm looking at your screen.
Oh, sorry.
We have a donation of $2,000 to the Etna Library from the Jack and Dorothy Byrd Foundation. Hanover Fire Department has received a donation from Maura Jones on behalf of retired New York City firefighter Timothy McKillen in recognition of Hanover's EMT's compassion and professional treatment of Mr. McKillen. The Hanover Police Department has received a donation from the Paedofars, Joe and Mary Ann, in order of $100. which they do every year, which is incredibly awesome. And we have a very generous donation to the Hanover Parks and Recreation Department for the Home for Holidays event from Jack and Dorothy Byrne Foundation in the amount of $6,500. And quite incredible gifts. Thank you to all. And Alex, we send big thank you notes to these people, right?
I don't know what size they are.
But we do send thank you notes.
I
To the
think the
respective
departments that
departments.
receive the donations are in
Excellent.
contact and, yeah,
Excellent.
yes,
Great.
for sure.
Thanks on that to all. And then I think we're light on reports from the town manager. Oh,
Do we need to go back to?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
we should go back to the item that we removed from the consent agenda. And I would entertain a recommendation to table the advisory board of assessors recommendation to the December 18th meeting,
I might go one more,
to the January,
yeah, as far as getting stuff back, because,
Yep.
yeah.
the January 4th?
January
No.
8th, I
Eighth?
think.
January 8th.
January
So
8th? Carrie, you wanna?
move to table the Advisory Board of Assessors recommendation with respect to the Friends of Hanover crew until the Select Board meeting of January 8th, 2024.
And I'll second that motion. Any comments?
No, but I think when it comes back, it shouldn't be on the consent agenda if we're gonna talk about it.
Right.
That's a good point, Jenny.
Yeah.
Okay.
It should be, I think it will be something that will
I mean, I guess
have an
we're
audience,
gonna
yeah.
talk about it.
We're gonna
since
talk
we
about
didn't-
it, so we don't wanna
didn't
just.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be putting it on the consent
Great.
agenda. But yeah, that's it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous to move it to the January 8th. Town managers report. Alex, anything
Nope.
new to report?
Nope,
Do you
got
have October and November report in the packet?
Oh, they're both in there? Oh, whoops,
They
I
are.
meant to take the October
Lots
out,
and lots
but,
of-
yeah,
We can go light on that next time.
yes.
On December 18th, we don't probably need either of them, although there is.
I was gonna include the whole year. I'm saying.
A novella.
I'm gonna include my own
Alex's
autobiography.
novella.
Cliff Notes version?
Cliff Notes version, it's so long.
I did want to give a plug for Hanover Parks and Rec. I did have the opportunity to go to the Celebrate the Seasons on December 2nd, whenever it was,
Yeah,
on
it was
Friday,
the 2nd.
December 2nd. It started raining exactly at 5 p.m. As the tree lighting was happening. But the hardy citizenry of the Upper Valley were out in full force. The Chili Fest was great. Our Liz Burdett was out there. Kids were doing s'mores on Allen Street. Big shout out to Ledyard and Bar Harbor Bank and Mascoma Banks. The banks, Mascoma had.
Mascoma was a line in and out. to
It
get on
was
the
it was
building.
amazing.
What did they do?
We should get the count.
Santa.
Clauses.
The
Santa.
whole 3 stories of the atrium are full of
Really?
Not
Olaf
just Santa, but
and
like
Olaf and
Oh.
the Grinch.
all the employees also have amazing costumes. Like it's like they
Oh,
all
that's so cool.
flew in from
popcorn
the
and
North
ice
Pole.
and
Yeah.
activities for the kids. It was a big, and it was pouring. It was
Yeah.
nasty, but
And
like,
Lou's had their decorating station.
Yep,
and there was a
and-
line like in the rain down
Yep.
the block to get in.
the
wonderful.
they had the gingerbread house or the candy house at the Hanover Inn. Red Kite had stuff. The Hanover Improvement Society did their wreath. I mean, town was hopping and it was great. So kudos to the Parks and Rec and the Economic Development people. I think a shout out to all the cool stars on Main Street. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, it was nice.
And I did want to just note the one thing that's new and coming up is on December 13th at the Community Center, Hanover Parks and Rec are hosting Gingerbread House Night. At least
Right.
according to your notes.
Yes, on the 13th, yeah.
Okay, so that's Wednesday night coming up.
Wednesday night, yeah.
So get your gingerbread on. Select board reports, Jenny.
Well, we had our Hanover Bike Walk meeting today. It was awesome. We're really hoping to have our are people appointed officially to the committee. It's getting really hard. We had people step away, we have new members. Everyone filled out the application. I thought we were gonna get a chance to consider, our members today, but maybe it can be on next.
Yeah, we were tracking towards next week. I'm just double checking the appointments with the bylaws, which we haven't brought back to the select board yet. So we want to do a couple of the advisory committees at one time, but I think we can make the appointments without having the bylaws move on to the next step, so we can at least get the members in.
Yeah, we've been appointing members for other committees.
But not in the select board, I don't think.
We
haven't
Right, I
done
don't think
it
the
here.
select board has ever appointed bike walk members, is that correct?
Oh, no, we did, but there's been a lapse, but
Okay.
we haven't done it probably in
A long time.
5
Right.
years
We
or
should do
something
it.
like that,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I
So
mean,
we
for
should
like
do-
other committees, we've been appointing
Yes,
people.
yeah, no,
Right?
understood.
So
Right.
that's all. We'd just like to appoint our members so that we can.
Well, and it's pretty much a whole new slate of membership, so
That's a lot of repeats.
that's true.
But we've had some people step away, so without those people coming regularly and not wanting to be full members, then it's hard to get a quorum in person without
So-
appointing the new members. Yeah.
Can we do that next on December
We
18th?
have that queued for the next meeting, just double checking the bylaws, and then also just ensuring we can appoint the members without having so, yeah, that's been the plan.
Sorry, as far as I know, no other committees have bylaws, but they have appointed members.
A number of other committees do, not all of them do, but as I've reported here a couple times is what Tracy, one of our new employees, is doing, is sort of gathering all the information and trying to get, I would like to not update them one at a time, but update them once and have our attorney review everything once and make sure there's consistency between how the bylaws are structured and how, all of that sort of stuff between the different committees. So like I said, I don't think there's a reason why that shouldn't,
Right. we
why that
just
should
appoint
stop the
people.
members from being appointed, but I mean, we got the last volunteer application over the weekend.
Yep.
So they all came in very recently. So that's why it couldn't happen today, because the agenda went out before that.
I think the only person who hadn't put it in was Rob, because I didn't ask him, because I didn't really think we needed it, and he put it in
Who?
this weekend. Rob Hausman.
Rob, no, that
But
wasn't the
then
one
he
that we just
decided-
got, but
I didn't submit one, but I'm an
Right, because
alternate.
you're already appointed though,
Yeah.
so I didn't
I
ask you.
am true.
yeah, we did review it today. I think we either have all of them or there's one missing. I think it's actually all, no, I'm mixing up with another. I think we have all of them. We went over them today.
I think
So-
we should just make the appointments
Yeah.
next week.
That has been the plan.
Great. Anything else to report, Jenny?
Great, no, everybody's super excited that, Dartmouth has been studying Wheelock in college and studying, thinking about a multimodal plan as they redevelop 25 West Wheelock. That's a big topic of conversation. Everybody's very excited that, the letters went out to NHDOT about Dunster Wyeth and the speed limit in Etna Village, and very much looking forward to, on Wednesday, December 13th, the speed limit being changed to 25 miles an hour between the roundabouts, and updating the school flashers on Lane Road, yeah.
Updating the school what?
School dome
Flashers.
flashers.
Nancy,
Nothing to report, I
you
said a
did
lot.
already.
I said a lot.
You said one more. Athos?
Yeah, there was a Trescott shareholders meeting and a Trescott board of directors meeting. Those are two separate meetings. I was there, Carrie was there, and Alex were there. We are all the three of us are representing the town of Hanover in the 50-50 representation on the shareholders board and the board of directors with Dartmouth, which is Josh Keniston, Jessica, thank you, and Emma Wolf. And we appointed the duties we had to accomplish were to appoint directors, and at the directors meeting we reviewed the budget, which extends out till around 33. So there's not a whole lot of revenue, but on the other hand, there's not a whole lot of expenses at the moment either, so we're in good shape.
Great.
And the big news there is the Proudy.
Thank you,
great.
thank you, Carrie.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that is a big impact. Yeah, I forgot that. Thank you. The Proudy is doing a pilot this year of adding mountain bike riding to their cadre of
Dirt bike.
not dirt bike,
Mountain bike,
Dirt
pedals.
bike brings the
Motors.
connotation of vroom.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I have
yes.
friends who gravel bike then.
Gravel bike. See, that's
Okay.
where the terminology. They do have a gravel bike ride, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Gravel bike. That's why you can't call. Anyway, I'll just stop
Yeah,
talking.
let's just keep focused here.
Anyway,
Focus.
it's a really
Tell us
neat-
about the
Bike-
Proudy.
It's a really neat course. It crosses Town of Hanover land, Hanover Improvement Society land, Dartmouth College land, and Trescott Trescott land as well.
That's super
So-
exciting. Did they, I mean, unrelated, did they talk about the other courses, or is like,
You mean the other courses? No.
yeah, okay.
Because it's Trescott.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
No.
curious, because I want to
Not in our
know what the
purview.
other courses are.
So we tentatively approve that, subject to a couple of discussions that we need to have.
That's really exciting. That will bring in a whole new group of people probably.
It's a nice ride. It's a nice course. I'll do it.
Cool. Anything else? No. Carrie?
There was a finance committee meeting on November 30th, most of which was focused on the schools. The schools have already penciled out their budget for next year. It looks as though for Hanover residents, it will be about a 6% increase in taxes, which is up from, I want to say, 4 last year. So it will be a heavier lift next year. And that, is approximately twice the tax impact as the town.
Great.
So just something for us to be aware of. And then the CIPC, Jenny, you want to talk about this? Or?
Oh, we met, we had a non-meeting meeting
We did.
with no quorum, and we discussed like how to think about the capital improvements in relation to the values of the town, and either relating it to the master plan or other things other lenses that relate to the master plan as well, that are potentially measurable that we could think about as we're evaluating projects. With basically like a list of ideas, none of which are necessarily more important than the other, but all seem to capture different ideas of what makes a sound investment, whether it's creating revenue generation or cost savings or efficiencies or synergies, or representing different interests in the town so that the departments or uses are not overlooked, and there's like a community kind of feeling to it. What am I missing?
I think
Right,
that's captured.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's like a little daunting. I mean, the requests, I'll send out that form. The requests are, not in yet, so we're just thinking what kind of thinking can we do prior to the requests coming in so that we're ready to consider them.
Something else to add?
Secretarial comment, prior to this meeting, actually Joanna had, I believe that was your suggestion that, or maybe it was Alex, but that we should consider with respect to committee reports, because they're not really getting a very big treatment in the minutes, that we should consider perhaps pre-drafting a paragraph with respect to each of our committees, so that can be used to facilitate the committee discussion and also the minutes.
Homework.
Homework, yes.
Well, it doesn't have to be a paragraph, it can just be bullets.
Bullets,
So,
yeah.
for example, I will give you my report. So the trustees of trust funds met
Oh, good.
2 weeks ago, the week that we had our select board meeting, Friday morning. We had an extensive discussion about the Brissette funds and updating the guidelines so the trustees of trust funds are doing their job. And so we have clarity from the language in the trust. We also talked about timing, and in particular highlighted like the end of December as a good time for the trustees to assess what the percent funds are generating and to give the select board kind of a, this is the money that would be available according to their guidelines. And so the percent funds themselves, Lou and his wife Anne said, here's some money, and in the language you can spend up to 5% of the annuity or the interest. And that we have learned over the years is not very sustainable in terms of this is a percent. This fund is to be in perpetuity. And so the trustees are trying to manage in such a way that there will always be money to enhance Hanover. And so we have come up with, they have guidelines. I put together an application that staff and perhaps other nonprofits in the community could complete and request money as long as they adhere to the guidelines. And we also looked at scheduling. So when I said end of December, they would like to come in January and meet with us and say, hey, here's an update, what's available and what's not available. Sneak preview, we have no money available from the percent funds at this time. We've kind of overspent that money in the course of our very generous gifts to projects across the community. But that's for the upcoming year. Not sure what the market will hold. The good news is, and I'm learning all kinds of things in this, trustee things. The good news is that in order to make money available, they take it out of the long-term funds, and Carrie, you'd be much better explaining this, but they put it aside and set it into an account. Well, the account normally is making like 0.1% interest, but now interest rates are great, and it's actually making more money in the flex account than it was in the long-term account. So that's a good news, and that will help cover some of the costs, some of the money that we've issued. But more in January.
Okay, more in January. I was just gonna
But
say.
I think the bottom line is we cannot plan on, and this is important, Alex, that we cannot plan on any funds to be used for innovative programming from the percent funds in the next year.
We have some, except for what has already been assigned, right?
Some. So there was a decision by the trustees not to, the town has already paid out $200,000 for
Camping.
Okay.
The camping.
I don't know, it's one or the other.
Yeah.
We've already paid it out, and they are not comfortable, the trustees are not going to use the percent funds to cover it because they were not informed. So
We've had this conversation about whose funds are they?
no, but what has happened is legal has gotten involved, the New Hampshire Charitable Fund, and what we defined as program was projects, and it was an interpretation. And when we got clarity from the Secretary of State, the New Hampshire Charitable Funds, it was very clear that we had creatively interpreted program. So more to come on that, but it was a couple-hour meeting, intense. People, they're responsible for managing these funds, and so I will get you materials for background reading as we're getting a final review from legal. And then the only other report I have is the Sustainable Master Plan Committee met that week as well. We considered around 55 different comments. Pretty much went through every one. Carrie and Deb were there, and I think Jenny hopped on. And Daniel, I think, at least saw me in the background because he's like, God, you were at another meeting? And so we took every item and tried to either incorporate it or say, yeah, we agree or we disagree, and agreed to get that to the planning board. We have subsequently, there was an online survey for comments. We've got, I think, 45 surveys back. There's a meeting tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock here in this room to consider all of those comments and how we incorporate them in the draft. And then I think the final will then go to the planning board. And I think we're gonna have a working session with the planning board to review the document.
Will there be a Zoom link for the 5 PM one?
There is a Zoom link, I think, because, yeah, it was in the notice. You want me to send it to you?
No, I'll see it in the notice if it was.
Yeah.
I think last time I had a little trouble finding it,
okay.
but, so I just thought I'd ask if you were here. And then, what is the plan for the Sustainability Master Plan website, moving forward? Do you happen to know?
I do not happen to know.
Okay.
I could make something up, but I don't really know.
No, that's okay, I can.
I'm sure it's been shared, but I don't, I think it's ours forever, but I don't know. I think, any other comments? Any other business? Any other business to consider in public session? There has been a request for a non-public session, pursuant to RSA 91:1:3 to A, B, D, E, and L.
Well done.
Okay. Callahan? Yes.
Whitcomb, yes.
Gracias, yes.
Carter, yes.
Chamberlain, yes?
We are now in public session. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, officer.
Thank you.
You too.